Hello, you've got to be kidding me, listeners. This is Alan4L. Very grateful to be invited by Garrett to extend my thoughts about TNA for the 20th anniversary podcast that we have going on here that you've been listening to, and I hope, I can contribute a little myself here in terms of what TNA means to me when I put my head down on the pillow at night and I close my eyes and I run through my thoughts and I get to the TNA section of my daily thoughts. What is it that I think about? And, I'm someone who has always been known as a fairly positive wrestling fan. I sometimes get frustrated with that branding, that people think he likes everything. Trust me, there is plenty of wrestling I don't like. There has been plenty of TNA / Impact Wrestling that I haven't liked and that I have taken great issue with over the years. Generally I just try to approach it that the content I put out there is more focused on the things I do like. And with that in mind, I want to hone in on an era of TNA's history which is when it spoke most to me as a fan and my sensibilities. And that was the run-up to TNA getting on Spike TV in the autumn of 2005. I'm sure Garrett can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was September, October kind of time, 2005. And in the lead up to that, TNA had a kind of... They were being booked primarily, I believe, by Scott D'Amore, and they didn't have a solid TV deal. They were putting stuff out on the internet and whatnot, and it was a kind of in-between period for TNA. And during this holding period, I don't know if it was just that they didn't feel they needed to meddle too much with the bread and butter, or what the thought process was, but they just went out there and let their guys do some great pro wrestling. And it kind of speaks to the idea that if you just let great pro wrestlers go out and do great pro wrestling, and you don't have to mess with it too much. And I think that was proven in the year that followed when Vince Russo came in and things kind of took a turn there for the next couple of years, as we saw the embodiment of, meddling with good wrestling that just generally worked. And I think during that period, really the only thing where the extra spices and extra flavor kind of added to the product was a lot of the paparazzi production stuff. Everyone still thinks really fondly of that. But going back to 2005, things were just left alone, and we had monthly pay-per-views that, if every pay-per-view wasn't a home run, great show, every pay-per-view had at least one or two awesome matches on it. And there were a couple that were home run great shows, where pretty much top to bottom the card delivered. They were really cooking with gas. They had some of their best X Division guys at that point coming into their primes. I don't want to say in their primes, but coming into their primes. So at that point where they've been around enough that I'm speaking to guys like Sanjay Dutt, Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley, AJ obviously, Petey Williams, guys who've been around now a couple of years, and they've got that experience, but they're also still super enthusiastic in their athletic prime, and they're capable of doing amazing stuff. And they didn't really try to rein themselves in that much. They were still pushing the boundaries. X Division, all about no limits, of course. So that's what those guys represented. They were pushing those boundaries. And then Samoa Joe comes in and adds a whole different flavor to that division, and it was just really great stuff. And you had some great tag stuff around that time as well. AMW were still doing really well. Just all over the card, there was things to really enjoy. And if you were into the stuff that guys like Rhino and Raven and Jeff Jarrett were doing at the top of the card, then even better. And Abyss was really, I think that was one of Abyss's best years, particularly when you consider the work he did in Ring of Honor as well that year to complement his TNA his time in TNA. A lot of guys on that roster excelling, and I just really loved that product around that time. It was really handy for me as a fan here in Ireland because that was when TNA was a big part of the wrestling channel here in Ireland and of course the UK as well. And we would see all those pay-per-views, the Sunday pay-per-views. I think they were live, not live, but I think we got them like within a day or two of them happening or something like that. I can't remember the exact way it unfolded, but we didn't have to wait particularly long to see those big shows, and we got all the stuff that was happening in between. It was just a good, easy time to follow that product. And then the first couple of months of when they went on to Spike TV, there was an injection of excitement into the place, and I think it really worked well around that period too. Christian coming into TNA around that time was a huge boost because that guy coming off his heel turn in WWE and the storyline with Chris Jericho and Trish Stratus and the new look with him and Tomko, like he was red hot when he came into TNA. Like it cannot be understated how excited people were for Christian when he came in, and he added a ton to that product. He hit the ground running there, and it was just a really fun product to watch. Some of my favorite matches from that era, I love the Chris Sabin Samoa Joe match. I think it's one of the most unheralded, underrated matches of like the last 20 years, not just in TNA but in all of wrestling worldwide. I thought they just had a sublime pro wrestling match. The AJ versus Joe matches, both singles matches they had. Obviously the triple threat with Daniels as well, which I'm sure has been spoken of during the course of this podcast, so I won't belabor that point. And as well, I really enjoyed AJ and Daniels singles matches earlier in the year. The 30-minute Iron Man match they had was really great. There's some other sneaky fun things in there as well. In 2005 you had Chris Candido knocking about the place and doing some fun stuff. He had a really fun TV match with AJ Styles, Jerry Lynn and Sean Waltman coming in. Alex Shelley versus Shocker on a pay-per-view. That was really good fun, if I remember right. Just a whole load of excellent stuff in 2005 TNA, and you've got Don West and Mike Tenay on the call. I mean, that's your dream team right there as far as TNA commentary goes. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention this was around the time that the Impact Zone really started to take form as a crowd, as a venue for wrestling. I think that 2005 was the year that it kind of caught on as one of the cool wrestling environments. That crowd, before they kind of got burnt out, before it was overdone, they were really into everything, and they created a great atmosphere for that product. And when you've got the great atmosphere, the very good production, and the very good commentary, it just creates a real nice, warm wrapping around this excellent wrestling product that you're putting forward in the ring, and just the whole presentation was just real good. So I'm waffling now, so I will leave it there. Thanks again to Garrett for having me on. If you want to check out more of my waffle, check out Alan4L's Pro Wrest Paradise at Peteroo Torch VIP. And you can find me, I usually say you can find me on Twitter at Alan4L, but I haven't been there very much recently. So stick to checking out Peteroo Torch VIP, see what we got going up there. And until next time, bye everybody.